Welcome, everybody, to the next edition of the Stand Course podcast. Today, I have Dr. Trisha Vinatieri, and she is a clinical psychologist and organizational development psychologist who has spent nearly 2 decades treating PTSD and holding various leadership roles within the healthcare systems. Currently, she is serving as the Chief of Wellbeing Officer at a large healthcare system, and now in her own consulting business where she helps medical leaders combat clinical staff burnout using evidence-based frameworks that empower her staffs. And today, we are going to talk about resilient leadership, because resilient leadership rests on 3 practices working together, and that is self-reflection, so you can see yourself clearly, values alignment to act with integrity, and purpose connection to stay energized through the hard seasons of life. Welcome, Dr. Trisha, to the Stand Course podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. And before we get started, I ask all of my guests, what is your favorite food?
So I really enjoy Ethiopian food. I really like injera. I could probably subsist on injera for the rest of my life. It's the spongy sourdough bread that you wrap the food in and you eat kind of like a naan. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I've
But I
ever
love
had
all
that.
foods. I love all foods. That
Okay.
is my weakness, though.
Okay, that's interesting. All right, well, I'm going to have to try that. So tell us a little bit about what you're working on right now. What's the biggest thing you're working on right now?
Yeah, so I recently started my own business in the fall. It launched, and I'm translating all the skills that I've learned in my role as a chief wellbeing officer for a healthcare system into a consulting business where I help healthcare leaders really understand staff burnout, which is very prevalent right now in healthcare and many other industries, so that when people come to work, they can thrive and do what they've signed up to do, which is to help patients. So it's really about helping leaders build insight into their own behavior, but understand at a systems level what is really causing staff to burn out and basically leave healthcare.
And there's a lot going on. We see the news every day, and that's kind of hard. People can't buy food. I went to the grocery store yesterday. It was $7.25 for a box of cereal.
Wow.
I was like,
Yeah.
it was a special cereal, but it was still a lot of money.
Yeah.
Can you imagine like going to the supermarket, every item's $10? You could buy 10 things. So there's a lot going on in life and in the world, and we're transitioning right now to this AI world where leadership as we know it has shifted. So let's talk about building resilient leadership. Where do you want to start this conversation today?
I would love to start it by talking a little bit about how one starts to be a resilient leader. And I think that starts with just self-awareness. And I think we as humans are not always great at self-awareness.
Hmm.
Looking inward can be scary. There are things there we may not want to see. And being aware of where you're at in your own life, where you are in terms of your kind of emotional and psychological well-being, that really impacts how you're going to interact with the people you work with. And you've probably heard the statistic that 70% of the time when someone leaves a job, it's because they're leaving their boss, because they're just very miserable working under that person. And so when leaders are willing to self-reflect and say, what are the places where I'm a really strong leader? What are my blind spots? But also, how am I doing as a leader? Very similar to being a parent. If you're not doing well, it's really hard to ensure that your kids are thriving, even though I think parents work so hard to push through that to provide for their children. I think
Yeah.
about that with leadership too, just that awareness of like, how am I doing and how is that impacting the people around me? And I've in my work found that many leaders aren't doing that self-assessment and checking in with themselves and saying, what am I doing to thrive at work, which is then going to ripple out to the people I work with, but also what might I be doing that then is impacting the people I work with?
Interesting. And you know what's so interesting? I'm really thinking about that you're a clinical psychologist and you're working in organizational development. So like from a clinical perspective, you not only have the clinical perspective, but you also have the context of being at a job and being in a situation where there's a hierarchy. Let's talk about
Absolutely.
the hierarchy for a minute. Let's just talk about that because you just said, people are leaving their managers. And I come from corporate America. I spent forever, way too long. I was there a lot, like I would say over 25 years I've worked in corporate America. And there's a lot of issues with it with bosses and a lot of from my experience, because I was working in healthcare, right? So there's a lot of women working in healthcare, a lot of women. And not, I talk to all these people that say, oh, it's a man's world, it's a man's world. But like where I come from, it wasn't a man's world. It was a woman's world, to be honest, because I worked in this big pharma industry. And the women, it was really difficult to work for women who haven't dealt with their stuff, who were not self-aware enough. And it was hard coming up under these women that were not there yet. Do you find, like, what do you think about, like, women managing other women? Do you find that there is more of a issue with that than men managing women, or is it the same?
I think I've seen pretty similar patterns across the two. I think that I've had conversations with a lot of women in leadership who feel pressure to present and lead in certain ways that fit more of like the male leader stereotype. Like that's how they have to, comport themselves in order to really like stake a claim in the organization. And so I've
Ah,
definitely had conversations with that. I've also had conversations with women leaders around this pull from their staff to not only be, direct and superhuman and you're going to have all the answers, but also nurturing. Like I can come to you and cry in your office, and I don't hear the same narrative from the male leaders I talk to. But I agree, regardless of gender, I think if you're in a place where like you are not aware of what is going on in your life and how it's impacting the people around you, that can create a very toxic workplace. And I think that in our culture, we just don't encourage people always to have that insight. It's kind of like you go to work, you shelve all the things that are going on in your life, you don't focus on those. It's like we're just not, that's just not how humans work. When things are going on in our lives, it's going to spill over at work, and we should be maybe not talking about our personal issues at work, but at least like having some honesty around where we are day to day. Like, oh, wow, things are really hard at home right now, and that may impact how I'm interacting with my employees. Like, it's almost as if we don't talk about why it's important to have that emotional intelligence. I think we're getting better. I think we're talking about it a little bit more,
yeah.
but absolutely, I think that that can become a really big factor for people not doing well at work. Like you said,
Y-
the women not taking care of their stuff, and then what kind of work environment that creates when people come to work.
Yeah, I think there's a lot here. I think we could probably just do an episode right just on self-reflection, because the more we become aware of what triggers us, the more we're going to be better at leading, because we're going to get ourselves out of the way. I think that's really important, because instead of operating out of our dysfunction, we're going to be operating out of the strengths that we have. And I think part of the problem with the bureaucracy, sorry, I have a lot to say on this topic. I think the problem we have of bureaucracy specifically, okay, is a leader is leading a team, right? But the people that are coming up underneath them, the people they're managing, are potential leaders, right? So the appetite, the I guess I want to call it the appetite, or the fluency of that person that's leading that team, is either going to squash these people that are coming up as leaders, or they're going to let them thrive. And having them let them thrive could potentially threaten that leader to then either have to find a new job, or that person has to be super strong to say, okay, I'm going to help this person thrive and get up there. Because I think the human nature of us is going to automatically try to squash down this person so that they do not become higher than us. And I think that is something that I don't know if we talk about that at work, but it's a thing, right? And it's a thing. And so those rising stars that are coming up underneath these managers that are maybe not in, that maybe are insecure, are going to take these other people that are underneath them, and they're going to knock them out of the race. They're going to knock them out, knock them out, knock them out. And so how does an organization deal with that? Like, have you seen this happen?
I have, and again, I don't know if people are volitionally saying, I don't want you to, you're a threat to me. But I think that many people manage in a way where it is more, it's like this command and control. I'm your manager. I tell you what to do and you do
Mm-hmm,
it.
mm-hmm,
And where I see that most troublesome is like now you're teaching potential future leaders that that's how you lead
mm-hmm.
versus what we what I really encourage, what really helps an organization thrive. I think about it in terms of like how we underpay women, and so many women have left the workforce during COVID. And like if we let women achieve their full capacity, like that would benefit everybody. That wouldn't threaten men. We'd actually all benefit. So I see a parallel there. But back to in the workplace, when we don't allow our employees to thrive and flourish, that hurts everybody. So
Yeah,
yeah, it may be ego around you're now a threat to me because you're doing your job really well and potentially you could do my job better and someone may see
exactly. Mm.
that. And also just not people also leave jobs. I look a lot at turnover because when people turn over, when people leave, it leaves a lot of work for the people that are remaining. So when there's a lot of churn, people can't ever find equilibrium and find like, oh, I can just come to work and do my job. It's like I have to come to work and then do other people's jobs too because we're short staffing. But people will leave jobs if they don't feel like they have the opportunity to grow. When you
Yeah,
have managers that aren't encouraging people to develop leadership skills or grow professionally, people are like, I'm out of here. And we
yeah.
lose great staff that could be really contributing. So,
The
yeah, it's
managers are the problem, and it's not even the managers that's the problem. It's the bureaucratic system that has been set up. Like, so you got to think about it like that. Like, if we're going to break it down, I'm just like, I like to dissect things. So, like, I think about this, and I know we weren't going to bring this conversation this way, but I just want to say one thing. I think it's all of it, right? It's the culture, it's the bureaucracy, it's the hierarchy that's set up that doesn't allow the managers to do their job without being threatened that they're going to lose their job, you know? So it's very interesting. And I think that we would find the answer if we would dissect it a little bit. But a lot of these people are not the people underneath the manager levels. They're basically in many cases not set up for success and not set up to like, okay, you know, do it right, right? Because the manager's always going to be looking at where are they going to go. Well, if I have someone coming up underneath me and I don't have a place to go, then I'm going to lose my job. So I might as well go out. So there's always going to be that. So it's interesting. And I think like right now, what's happening also is with this new transformation that we're going to do a lot more gig working, and this gig economy is going to, like you said, you're going to go out and be a consultant. It's going to allow people to have that flexibility.
And I think people want that flexibility of not being tied to a very rigid schedule or having their happiness in life be in many ways dictated by the person they work under. There's really interesting research that your supervisor, your boss, has just as much impact on your mental well-being as your spouse. And it makes sense,
It
right?
does
Because we
make sense.
spend
It does
most of
make
our
sense.
waking life at work. And so if it's colleagues or your boss that are really making your life miserable, like of course that's going to impact. So I think when you have the flexibility of, having a gig on the side or having your own business, that really allows, like there's still challenges, of
Yeah.
course. They're different challenges, but feeling like you have to answer to someone who may not be supportive, who may not be emotionally aware, who may actually be engaging in pretty toxic behaviors. Not having that to worry about can be a really nice breath of fresh air.
It is because look, a lot of this, the mental well-being and the health comes from the fact that you can do your day and enjoy your day. Like this idea, I have this like thing that I tell people, I say, you are the author of your day, and you get to choose what you want to do every hour, every minute. And there's nothing better than that to be able to say, I'm the author of my day. And so we need to think about this as we go to work and our health and our well-being. I'm going to tell you a quick story. We're going to get right to the next ingredient after this. But I had somebody on the show, Dr. Sherry Campbell. She's a psychologist. She came on the show. And I told her about a situation I had at work. One of my very last real situations where I had to report to a manager. Very difficult time for me. And this person came for me in such a massive way. Dr. Sherry said to me, Julie, you became a shiny object and you needed to be a gray rock. And I'm like, what is that? Like, I didn't know that like gray rocking was like a thing. You know about gray rocking?
I do, yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, maybe you could tell us about that. I'm like, all right, well, now I understand when I need to be a shiny object and when I need to be a gray rock. And so I obviously was a shiny object. And I'm wearing pink. That's a little shiny. I'm sure I could show you my sparkles here, but it's like, no. And I'm really bad at gray rocking. So it causes me to have to morph into somebody I'm not. So can you tell me a little bit about what you know about that?
Yeah, I think it's, a coping mechanism to avoid being the object of someone's, I've heard it in the context of people who have a lot to say about topics. They're kind of third rail topics. Like they're going to bring up debate, they're going to bring up arguments and things like that. And like being a gray rock is a way of being like, I'm not engaging. But also it's kind of like, the squeaky wheel versus the nail that gets hit by the hammer. It's like you're just gonna lay low, you're just gonna do your thing because there are times when you want to be the shiny object and you want people to be like, that person has amazing
Yeah,
potential. I want to grow that person. I want to support that person in their growth. There's other times where you're like, I just gotta be that gray rock that people just completely ignore so that I am not the object of someone's whatever it is, like
exactly.
anger, or they're feeling like they're being threatened by someone and they're coming after me. Like I don't want their attention on me.
Exactly. So we have a lot of gray rocks. What's very funny about all of this is like, companies, they say they want critical thinkers. They say they want people that are innovative. And when they get somebody like that, they just don't know what to do with them. They're really like, they don't know what to do with people like that. A lot of secret agent entrepreneurs, or what we call intrapreneurs. They're the intrapreneurs of corporations, right? They're the secret people that really want, they have a job, but they really don't want to be there and they want to start something on their own and they just kind of like figure out their way to stay in these jobs. And so I think that the best advice that I have for people that want to stay in their corporate jobs that are entrepreneurs is try to be as much of a gray rock as you can. Because I think that was where I messed up, right? If I had been more of a gray rock, I would have had my corporate job if I really wanted to keep it. And so the gray rock, and then I tried the gray rock mentality. By the way, I did try it in the next job that I had. So I tried it in the next job that I had, and I just was a doer. I took orders. I was an order taker. I'm like, oh, do you need that? I'm happy to help, happy to serve. What do you need me to do? Try not to give many ideas. I always have ideas, but it's like you try not to give the ideas. You try to just do what they tell you to do, you know, then it's just so interesting. There's such a dichotomy here because, on one hand, you want them to give you, the ideas, and then the other hand, you really don't.
Yeah. And how happy were you in that job being a doer and a versus a critical thinker where you're sharing your ideas?
Well, it was boring.
Yeah.
It was boring. It was hard. It was exhausting, but I got a paycheck And the only thing that kept me going, to be honest, was on Fridays. I had it was little bit of a part-time situation where I worked 4 days a week. On Fridays, I got to do my podcast. So I talked myself into this thing where, okay, if you're going to have to do this, it's kind of like taking your vitamins. It's like eating your broccoli. On these 4 days of the week, you're going to eat broccoli and salad. And on Fridays, you're going to get to eat ice cream and French fries, you know? And that's kind of like how I helped myself get through that season. But there's
Didn't
a
sound like you were thriving. You were just
no,
surviving.
I was surviving, and it was a season. Like you can do that for a season. You know what I mean? I think for a season, you have to do what you have to do, right? There's a lot of people there that need a paycheck. And honestly, like what people don't realize about jumping into your own business is it takes a good 3 to 4 to 5 years to make money. And that's actually the truth. I'm not sugarcoating that for people that want to start their own businesses, because a lot of people that listen are entrepreneurs and they would actually agree with me. There's so many things that we need to learn to get into starting a business. But actually, I believe it's 100% possible to do it. There's just a little bit of a runway and knowing the right things to do. But it's way better than feeling stuck in a job where you feel sick. What's the next ingredient that we want to get into?
Well, I think it's very connected to the story you just told about in your second job, gray rocking it and being like, fine, I will do the things, I will survive. And that's values alignment, meaning when we're doing work that isn't consistent with what's important to us, that chips away at our resilience. And I think you're right that many of us can tolerate, we have a high tolerance for, I'm just going to get through this because I need the paycheck. But at a certain point, it really can take an impact on your quality of life where you're like, I'm doing this work that isn't meaningful. It's not consistent with my values. So I'm doing work that isn't helping me live consistently with my values. Maybe that's innovation, maybe that's critical thinking, maybe that's being productive, maybe that's like helping the organization grow or whatever it looks like. But then there's also what's even more, I keep using the word toxic, but what could be even more harmful is when you work for an organization that is counter to your values. And so when I think about, I'm going to give an example of healthcare because that's kind of like the space
Yeah.
I live in. When doctors are told, we know that there's a best practice around somebody comes to you and they're having pain in their muscles, even though an MRI makes more sense, you have to send them for an X-ray first. We start with the lowest, cheapest option. And even though that may delay care for that person, we want you to send them to an X-ray, even though an MRI is medically indicated here. And so doctors have to sit with this value that they've sworn an oath to, that they're not going to do harm, that they're going to help people heal. And then they're telling their patients, I know I should be sending you to do an MRI, but my organization is going to require you to do an X-ray and probably some physical therapy too before we can send you to an MRI, even though you're telling me you had an injury playing lacrosse. So I think it's just things like that where it's like, okay, I'm in an organization that's not really consistent with my values. It's not allowing me to be the person I wanted to be. But then there's also the even worse situation, which is when people are like, wow, this is counter. Like my job is making me be dishonest or making me is preventing me from providing something I should be providing to my patients. So I think that values alignment is so, so important. And I think, again, we can tolerate being in a business that isn't consistent with our values up until a certain point, but you're going to start to notice like how you feel as a human when you're like, this is where I go to work.
Yeah.
I'll give a very quick example. My best friend is a lawyer, and she started out as an intellectual property lawyer in Silicon Valley, where she was helping big businesses sue each other over copyright stuff. And she was like, I'm not helping people. I'm just helping really big companies get richer. She's like, this doesn't feel great. So I'd prefer to just so she left and she took a different job where what she was doing was more consistent with her values. But that's an example where at the end of
Yeah.
each day she was like, I feel icky. I don't
I
want to live
love
my
that.
life in a way where I'm feeling icky about myself.
You can't feel icky for a period of time. And I can, it's just so funny that you said all that because in my mind, I'm thinking about what happened to us during COVID, and I'll leave it at that, and all the people that knew better, all the people that knew better because we were, and now I think I can say that. I think I can say it now because of the research that has come out. But, if you are a pharmacist or you come from the pharmaceutical industry like we did, and we knew about, the like 8 phases of a clinical trial, and all the testing that goes in and all the data points that you have, all the safety data, right? When we know all that stuff and then we're short tracking something that now is going to have adverse effects, like that's a values alignment issue, right?
Yeah.
And so I hate to get controversial, but you know what? Sometimes you need to, and I never do. I never say stuff like that. But it goes along the lines of like, what is your value saying? What do you actually know, and what are people making you do, and not, and that disconnect between who you are and what you value to what you actually have to do every day. It's like you're a fraud, and that being a fraud in your everyday life takes a toll on your energy. It takes a toll on your wellness, your well-being, and the ability to be resilient, right? Because all these things are like these little like dings against you and the way you are able to be resilient. And the more punches you take, the more you're just gonna like want to be like, hey, I just want to stay in the bed today. I want to stay in bed, because that's the easiest place for me to be. Like even like forget about all the drugs and all the alcohol and things to numb yourself. My drug of choice was just getting in bed. Like I'm just going to pull the covers over my head and like just take a nap because that's the best place for me. Taking a nap was like the way I would rest and recover, right? But you get into a place where you want to stay in the bed, and now you have a problem, right? And so the answer, I think it's going to lead us to our next ingredient.
Yes. I want to say fraud. That feeling like a fraud is so spot on that people like nobody wants to feel like a fraud. Maybe a tiny percentage of the
Yeah.
population, but most people, yeah, it makes you feel gross about yourself. But yeah, that alignment leads into the purpose connection, which is the third ingredient of like, do I feel like what I'm doing in my life is creating purpose, is giving me meaning in my life? I'm thinking about the story about you writing your father's book and how it's informed, like how the spirit of who he is has informed your business and stay on course, even the title of your podcast, and having something that is meaningful to you. And we need that in our life to thrive and to be resilient, is to feel like what we're doing in our life gives us meaning. It doesn't have to even be what you're doing in your workplace or what you're doing for your career. That's often, again, where many of us spend most of our time. So hopefully we're feeling that sense of purpose, but that could be you raising your children. That could be a
Sure.
hobby. That could be volunteerism. That could be your role in your family, your role in your community. But if you don't have a sense of meaning in your life, it is a desolate life. It is one where people probably end up, using substances or being like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to stay in bed all day. Like we know that when people have a lack of meaning in their life, it leads to depression and anxiety. So that like
Yes.
on a clinical level, but even just on a kind of everyday level, like people when they don't feel like they have that meaning, it's it's not a happy life. It's
Exactly.
you try to fill it with other things like shopping or, distractions and things like that as a way of like, I have this hole in my life and I'm trying to fill it with things when what you're looking for is purpose. Like, what is my
P,
purpose?
vitamin P. I call it
Yeah.
vitamin P, actually. I call it vitamin P because vitamin P is the anchor of life. It's like the anchor of life. I literally believe, okay. So Trisha, I did a lot of growth work, and that's why I became a coach, because I became a coach because I went through a really hard time, and through the hard time I found my purpose, not understanding what that was going to look like in the real world and how that was going to materialize, because I thought like my purpose was to help people find and discover their purpose, which it kind of is. Like it was, I did a lot of that. But a lot of what I'm doing now is helping people get a voice for their purpose. So we do this program on Monday nights called Before I Speak. And I have like 12 people in there that are getting on stages to share their purpose with the world. And so I become a facilitator of purpose. And so this purpose thing is like so deep inside of me. And that's why I get so excited, because I get to do this every single day. I get to serve people in this way. And I know that what I'm doing is meaningful because I've positioned myself for this. But it didn't come without sweat and tears and wanting to give up. Last year, I tell the story. I wanted to give up every day or every Friday. Every Friday, I would call my team. I have people that work with me, and I'm like, all right, that's it. I'm calling it a day. I'm going back to work. I'm going to get a job today. I'm going. So over the weekend, I'd be looking for a job. And then on Monday, I would be trying to start my business again. But like, this is like what happens. There is this like thing that happens when you leave corporate America and you try to start your own business. At least for me, I'm waiting for the magical person that comes and is like, oh, this is so easy, because I can make it look easy. I could lie to the whole world, right? I can say, oh, this is so easy, you should do it, right? But I'm not going to do that for people because that wasn't my experience. And I don't know, you might talk to a bunch of other entrepreneurs and they're going to tell you the same, they might tell you the same story. But where am I going back to? I circle around with a lot here. But what I'm going back to is this purpose connection, how deeply important it is for us to understand our purpose, to find our purpose. It builds resilience. It brings fun back into life.
Oh, totally. And I will say I'm only maybe 7 months into starting my own business, and I'm in those early days where there are many days where I'm like, do I just like close the shutters and close up shop and just, I do enjoy my full-time job, but I have so much passion and purpose in helping our current healthcare situation improve, because I'm kind of scared for healthcare's future. I don't know, when I'm towards the end of life, are there going to be enough doctors to take care of me? I don't know at the rate we're going. It's looking kind of scary.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think that what's keeping me, maybe my business will succeed, maybe not. But it's the purpose. It's
It's
like
you're
that
not
is
giving.
driving me. That is giving me the tenacity to stick with it. It's like,
And
no,
and
it's
I'm going to tell
important.
you something, it's a long game. And so when you think about it, think about your what you're doing as the long game. So you're
Mhm.
never giving up this thing. If you really think about it like deeply, okay? We're getting deep here, and we have like a few minutes left. But I do want to say this for everybody listening there. If you have something inside of you that you feel that you need to do, if you have some purpose that has been lit up, and that's what it is. It's a lightning. It's a light inside of you that needs to come out. And that light needs to be walked through. It's the journey part of it. And it's the thing you don't quit. Okay. No matter what the circumstances look like, and if you haven't left your corporate job yet and you haven't done this full time for like 2 or 3 or 4 years, you really can't quit it. Okay. Because when you're still in that other job, you're still doing another job. Right. And so there's a whole journey thing here. There's a whole journey thing. And so I want to encourage you, and I want to encourage everybody else. If you have purpose deep inside of you, if you have purpose deep inside of you and you feel that this is the thing that you were created for, you don't quit that. You don't quit it. And you just kind of like figure it out along the way. So I hope that encourages you today.
And share that purpose with the world. That's what it does. It like is a lightning inside of me that I'm like, I feel like people could benefit from, you know, what I can share with them, what I can teach them, and all
Yeah.
of that. So I think you're very right. It is a long game. And I also want to encourage your listeners, like, the world needs more purpose. So be that beacon in the world right now.
Be the
So really well
purpose.
said, Julie. Really well said.
Yeah. I mean, be the purpose you're looking for, right? Sometimes I feel like I'm walking around. I was telling somebody this weekend, I'm like, does anybody see like the light inside that just got lit up inside of me? Like, does anyone see it? Because I feel it. Who knows? It doesn't matter who sees it, right? It's real for me. And I hope it's real for everybody else that's listening. Trisha, this has been an amazing conversation. I'm going to have more purpose conversations because I just got excited today, Trisha. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Tell us where our audience can find out more about you.
Sure. So you can find me at cliniciancareconsulting.com. So again, that's cliniciancareconsulting.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm the only Trisha Vinatieri on there. So feel free to connect with me.
All right, Trisha, I think this was a fantastic episode. Thank you for being a guest on the Stay on Course podcast.
Thank you for having me.